wall was the most potent symbol of the Cold War between East and West. It was the line in the sand for the forces of communism and democracy in Europe. And it was a cruel divider of families, a great city, a country rebuilding from its disastrous defeat in the Second World War. Berlin, 1945, a city in ruins, a capital reduced to rubble in a country conquered by World War II allies. A conquest that ended with the surrender of Nazi Germany and the death of its leader, Adolf Hitler. Right after the war, Berlin was divided into 4 sectors, each occupied by one of the 4 major Allied powers. Its eastern half fell under the control of the Soviet Union. The western portion came to be governed by the Americans, the French, and the British. Within a few years, the country itself was divided into 2 separate German states. On one side, communist East Germany, on the other, a democratic West. As the years passed, there was growing unhappiness in East Germany with the country's economic and political conditions. People began to flee to the West. In the first 8 months of 1961, about 160,000 left. To stop the exodus, the communist authorities in East Germany ordered the construction of the Berlin Wall. Residents soon faced a heavily guarded barrier, one that stretched 166 kilometers across the city and surrounding countryside. Families were cut off from one another. A visa was needed to travel from one side of the city to the other. And East German soldiers guarding the wall had strict orders to shoot to kill. At least 100 times they did just that. Berlin remained divided until 1989, the year the whole Soviet bloc started to crumble. Thousands of East German citizens left for nearby Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and Poland, taking refuge in West German embassies. The flight to freedom grew and could no longer be ignored. On November 9th, 1989, East German officials gave in. Travel restrictions were lifted, and the Berlin Wall came tumbling down. In a stunning display of people power, the wall was torn down piece by piece. Few who celebrated that momentous night could have predicted the difficulties that lay ahead. The Berlin Wall may be gone, but removing the remaining great differences between the former communist East and the capitalist West has proven a tough task. In the East especially, high hopes have been dampened by hard truths. Unemployment, a loss of purpose, a sense the East is being swallowed by its larger, richer sibling in the West. In the fall of 1999, on the 10th anniversary of the wall's collapse, the CBC's Don Murray traveled to Berlin for this assessment.
In a symphony of cranes and trains and building sites, a city reinvents itself. Berlin, once the scarred and divided heart of Germany, is the capital of a united country once more. Ten years ago, in the evening of November 9th, the past crumbled.
The wall is open. Are you kidding? You're kidding. Oh, no. No, I'm not kidding. It's true. The wall is open. No.
Many had waited for this, but none had expected it on this day, in this way, with this speed.
Everybody knew it was true somehow, but you couldn't believe it.
This division of Germany and all this nonsense, the wall, this living in a cage is over. This feeling of being out, coming out was very strong then.
The Berlin Wall sliced through this city and this country for 28 years. And while it stood, it not only defined and dramatized an ideological confrontation, it divided a people. The wall and the confrontation are now part of the rubble of history. And what was once here a forbidding no man's land is now simply an overgrown field. Germany is now united physically and politically, but to the surprise and consternation of many, it is not yet united emotionally. The wall has disappeared. The gap remains, and for many, it remains large. "10 years ago, the Church of the Gethsemane was one of the focal points of the East German citizens' movement. This fall, it was a focal point again, this time of remembrance and of music, celebrating what East Berliners call their revolution. Earlier in the week, another evening of reflection, led by Dr. Jens Reisch. Reisch was one of the most prominent leaders of the opposition to the communist regime. With unification came disappointment. He abandoned politics. The poisoned legacy of passivity in the face of power, bred into a people over 40 years of communism, has still not been overcome.
Das hat dann dazu geführt, dass also alle die Dinge, die wir eigentlich hätten selber reformieren müssen, weil nur wir in der Lage waren, das zu reformieren, dass die mit einem Beruf, lass das mal den Westen machen, der hat da 40 Jahre Erfahrung, die haben das alle besser, die haben die Westmark, die haben die Wirtschaft, die haben den Rechtsstaat, die können das alles und ihr seid Anfänger, Laienspieler, Schluss damit.
While it stood, the wall dominated minds and diminished citizens. In a barren landscape, it symbolized a barren regime which demanded not thought, only obedience. Nearly 1,000 people died in failed escapes. This remnant of the wall, with its wreath and its cross, now stands as a memorial to that courage and that horror. 10 years later, however, it is what replaced the wall that rankles.
It was some sort of takeover. I wouldn't call it hostile. It was friendly even, but it was a takeover, and the first colonialists who were invited to come. So but nevertheless, it's some sort of a merger that where afterwards the taken over is, feels that he has given away the right to decide things. That is the feeling.
In a new country, there is a new fear. Lost jobs, lost forever. After Reich spoke, he listened to a sad procession of men without work. Officially, unemployment in the East is 18%. Disguised unemployment due to forced early retirement may run at over 30%.
Die Angst, nämlich den Arbeitsplatz zu verlieren, die Wohnung zu verlieren.
This is another monument to an Eastern past and a Western future. After the wall came down, a West German firm bought this factory, which employed 3,300 people. It promptly sold the machinery and shut the plant down. It was a story repeated across East Germany. Those thrown out of work became a lost generation. Many of their children went west looking for work. Unification has been expensive. Now, government money is running out. This demonstration near Brandenburg Gate at the very heart of Berlin was to protest new austerity measures. All Germany's public sector workers were represented here, but East German police, firefighters, and government workers were particularly aggrieved. Their wage gap with the West had slowly been closing, but austerity will freeze their wages at 15 or 20% below those of their colleagues in the West. The financial divide deepens the psychological divide. Photographs from East German secret police files, the Stasi files, record another aspect of the wall's bleak power. These copies belong now to Jutta Hensel. She was born in East Germany. They record her failed attempt to escape in 1980 with her husband and daughter hidden in the trunk of a car. They were caught by the Stasi. She was jailed. Her daughter was taken from her. 3 years later, as it did regularly with such prisoners, the East German government ransomed them off to West Germany for Deutschmarks.
Sondern man wollte von Ost nach West. Also kein Verbrechen. Ich habe niemand wehgetan oder was gestohlen oder ermordet, sondern ich habe ja nichts getan, sondern ich wollte nur von da nach da.
Jutta settled in West Berlin. The crumbling of the wall seemed to open her path. She would set up a business, a pizza parlor in the impoverished East. But her drive to the East has now become a daily pilgrimage of failure. She discovered that the Easterners, the Aussies as Germans call them, were still rich in resentment and suspicion towards Westerners, the Westies. She refused to tell them that she was originally from the East.
Und wollte eigentlich damit nicht hausieren gehen, damit sie mich mögen oder mich bemitleiden. Das war nicht mein Sinn, sondern ich bin hingekommen als Geschäftsfrau oder Kauffrau, wollte oder habe ein Geschäft aufgemacht und wollte, dass sie mich so akzeptieren, wie ich jetzt bin, ohne meine vorherige Geschichte zu wissen.
7 years preparing pizzas in a district where more than a quarter of the people have no work have left her nothing but debts. She believes envy drove many in the town to boycott her.
Hello.
Today is no different. She will have no more than a dozen customers, most of them young, with little money to spend. The Reichstag, Germany's parliament, once the symbol of political failure, burned under Hitler, abandoned in a divided city. It's now the crown of Germany resurgent. Visitors stream to its new transparent dome, and through it what they see is a city shifting its center of gravity east. It's a shift engineered by political will and industrial money. But will and money cannot yet erase Eastern resentment or Western impatience with that resentment.
One gets tired of being accused of being arrogant all the time. I mean, you live the way you think you live is right, and then taking care of all these East German sensitivities can become a burden too, in many ways, at least for some.
Professor Heinz Ickstadt moved to West Berlin 21 years ago from West Germany. His university, the Free University, is a product of divided Berlin. It was set up in 1948 by dissident professors from the East. His knowledge of East Berlin, even today, is distant. The East Berliners had little to offer their Western neighbors. Potsdamer Platz. In the divided city, it lay between East and West, a poisoned field. Now the logos of Western corporate power proclaim its return from the wilderness. Corporate cathedrals will give it glittering new life. But Western power brings Western control. More than 2/3 of all senior public and private sector positions in the East are now held by West Germans.
It is inevitable that the resentment has been maybe unconsciously much greater than people realize. And when they talk to you, all of a sudden it comes out. The resentment comes from so many factors of having lost advantages, of having other people telling you how to do things, which you think you know quite well how to do.
For 15 months, 2 West German bricklayers working on a project decreed by city leaders have been laying a double row of cobblestones along a line snaking through the city. The line retraces the Berlin Wall. It is its stone ghost, a ghost that evokes nostalgic memories.
Before the wall comes down, it was more easier.
Really?
Yeah, to get money and everything at work and everything. Now it's so big and
It's harder now?
harder now, yeah.
Why?
Why? Because too many people there now. It's
From the East?
big, yeah, it's big. And the East people, it's cheaper at work.
Dirk Wollen goes about his task methodically, pouring the tar that will fix the stones in place. This official act of remembrance fuels questions from passers-by. It provokes criticism and a surprising suggestion from Berliners.
Some people said it is good, and some people said it costs too much money, we don't need this. Some people said we want the wall again, wall up
want
again.
the wall
Yeah,
again?
Yeah.
Who says that?
Different people. From East, from West.
Both.
Yeah.
Why would they want the wall up
know.
again?
They think it was better before. You see, they can get better work and earn more money. And the East said we have no problems before. They said it was all easier when the wall was up.
On an autumn evening, Wilfrieda Schmidt climbs the stairs to see a friend she first met in the heady days of the fall of 1989. This is Ina Merkel, another opposition activist who thought, as Wilfrieda did, that they could change the world when the wall crumbled. Now, they plan a party to celebrate those days as they talk of an East German colleague who stayed in politics and became an MP.
How does she feel about Parliament, anyway?
I think she's
frustrated.
But their mood on this evening is bittersweet.
Nobody wanted to take that position.
Look
At that picture, how happy we were before the wall came down.
No, they only didn't know.
For them, as for so many East Germans, the price of unification was renunciation of part of their identity as citizens of a different country.
But and to accept differences as a chance and not only as a disturbing thing who has to become vanished into nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's the problem.
Of
Every
course.
Easterner has to finish with his biography or his or her biography and has to become a Westerner instead of accepting there are two different cultures, and if two different cultures meet each other, that's not only disturbing, it's a chance too to create something new. And that creation of new doesn't take place.
No, that's right. No.
And I think that's the main problem.
We missed the chance.
For 28 years, the Brandenburg Gate stood between two Germanys, no more. Yet in the capital of Europe's most powerful country, unity still drives an uncertain chariot. The wall that cannot be seen still divides, still hobbles a people.